Former RNC Chairman Jim Nicholson on those developments and what he makes of them. Jim, good to have you back with us. What do you make of that he will be presidential and will start sounding much more presidential, maybe as soon as next week in a series of foreign policy statements? What do you make of that?
It's sort of enigmatic, but he's had a very unusual campaign, and things that he's said in the past have caused his numbers to go up. So I wouldn't be the one to predict. I would have thought he'd talk more about foreign policy by now, this deep into the campaign. But I'm happy to see that he is planning to do it next Wednesday.
You know, Jim, there's been this back and forth with Mr. Trump going after the Republican establishment, for lack of a better word. Just say that it's a rigged system, and that, I guess by extension, big party insiders like you, or former insiders, are trying to prevent him from getting that nomination, even down to considering rules changes that will make it more difficult for him to get that nomination. How do you feel when he says that kind of stuff?
First of all, Neil, I don't have a candidate in this race. I did have Jeb Bush, so I no longer have. And I will support the nominee of our party, whomever it is.
Well, you mentioned Jeb Bush. He's not going to the convention. Some people read into that he's still sore, still angry, still doesn't like the guy. And that's echoed by a lot of other mainstream candidates, even the former Republican nominee himself, Mitt Romney.
Nobody likes to lose, and especially if you're competitive and if you've been very successful and very effective like Jeb has. But for Trump to say those things, the system is rigged and it's corrupt, is just, you know, flamboyant, insightful rhetoric, because it clearly is not. The Republican Party has a set of rules. They've been really the rules of the party in some ways since it's been a party in the middle of
the big rule,
the
Jim,
19th century.
The big rule is that the 1237, others, half the delegates plus one. So that rule, I assume, stays. Just if he's close, it's not enough. You got to get 1237. I understand that. The Trump people always say they're afraid you're going to do something else. Not you. I'm sorry for that. To try to make it more difficult by allowing other candidates to come in after, let's say, 2 ballots, so that it's not just, in this case, the ones who would qualify in the ballot right now, as the rules stand, Ted Cruz and Donald Trump, to go at it again and again, to widen that out. Do they have a point? Should it just be Trump and Cruz, as the rules stand now, going at it in multiple ballots if need be?
No, the rules are the rules. If nobody gets the 1237 in the first ballot or the second ballot, you know, the first ballot, most of the delegates are bound.
Right.
The second ballot, about half of them become unbound. And if there are subsequent ballots, and it looks like there's sort of a deadlock over those they've been balloting on, the people chosen at the grassroots level around the country, who are those delegates, that they may decide they can't resolve this impasse, and they'll go for someone else. That could happen.
It's unlikely, given the fact that 70+% of those delegates are Trump or Cruz people. But you're saying that if it went into a lot of ballots, I don't know how many, they might have to revisit that, right?
Yes, there's precedent for that. It's a long time ago. It's not in anybody's recent memory. But, you know, the fact that you have the most votes going into the convention doesn't ordain that you ought to get the most delegates either. You know, Ronald Reagan in 1976, he had 1 million more votes than Gerald Ford. But Gerald Ford had more delegates, and he got the nomination on the first ballot.
And Abraham Lincoln on the third ballot. And he wasn't the leader going in. And, James Garfield, who wasn't even running, was finally recruited, I think, on the 39th ballot, 1880. I remember that convention. I enjoyed covering it. Jim Nicholson, it's always good having you. Thank you very much.
Good to be with you, Neil.